for April 13th, 2023, Maidencreek Township Board of Supervisors. And I'm going to ask everybody to rise for pledge of the flag, please. And I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming this evening. Is there anybody who needs a seat? There are still some seats. I saw somebody standing in the outboards there. Okay. Anybody needing a seat? Anybody else out there needs a seat?
Just one gentleman standing and we prefer to stand.
Yeah, okay.
I got a bad knee.
Okay. I'll swap you for another one if you want. Okay. Well, the first thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to amend our agenda this evening to reflect an addition to the street parking ordinance. So do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
Second.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. We also had an executive session which followed our conditional use hearing on March 27th, 2023. And that dealt with personnel and litigation issues. Okay, and I also want to announce that there's a no burn request that's currently in effect, requested by the Blandon Fire Company, the fire marshal and fire chief. And quite honestly, it just makes sense if we look at the wind. So if you want to keep that in mind before you burn, you may want to check. And Chief, is that something you would rather have them do at this point? Call?
Yeah, I think we're gonna release that ban on Saturday.
Okay.
It's supposed to rain on Saturday, so hopefully we can release that on Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Also, street sweeping begins next week and continues through April. And we want everybody to be aware of that so that they can comply with the signs that are regulating that. If we can't get by to sweep your street because your car's there, we don't have enough time to keep coming back to see if there's an open spot, so please try to comply with that. Anything else that anybody wants to add real quick? No? Okay, so how about an approval for the minutes for the meeting on March 9th, regular meeting?
Second.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
Approval for the treasurer's report and bill list for March of 2022.
Second.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
We're going to go into public comment for anything on the agenda. We're going to start at the front row, work our way back. There are a lot of people here tonight. So what I need you to do is just stand up and announce your name and your address as it pertains to whatever it is you're going to ask or speak about. Anybody in row one? Yes, ma'am.
My name's Eileen Gordner, and I'd like to talk about the low-head dams.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay?
Just a moment, please.
If I could, we just have a prepared statement about the dam first, okay? The board's asked me to make the following statement on their behalf. In the fall of 2022, the township undertook repairs to a low-head dam on the property adjacent to East Western Road and private properties. The township undertook the work to clear away the buildup of silt and sediment and to correct structural undermining that was caused by stream flow and flooding. The staff also placed stones to prevent further buildup or erosion. This work, as we now understand, required a permit from the Berks County Conservation District, which was not acquired. An investigation is underway by the Berks County Conservation District and under the guidance of the Department of Environmental Protection. Our current understanding of the investigation is that the work completed was proper, but that the permit should have been issued. The township will obtain the permit, which should resolve the matter. In addition, the work was scheduled and its preparation was not appropriately communicated to the Board of Supervisors. With these two findings, the township is awaiting the investigation to conclude by the Berks Conservation District and will conduct a review of its procedures to ensure the Board of Supervisors is appropriately consulted on future projects. At this time, I have advised the Board of Supervisors and staff to not comment more on this matter as it's being investigated by a regulatory agency and the township's internal review is a personnel matter. So with that being said, you can make your comment, but the board's not gonna comment. At least I've asked the board not to comment back, so it's not gonna be a dialogue, but you can make any comment you want.
Okay, I still have a comment.
Sure.
Okay, I really didn't know anything about lowhead dams before a couple weeks ago. So I did a little bit of homework, and apparently there's a movement to remove them, not to restore them. They want, the Conservation District and the environmentalists are pushing to have them removed. Pennsylvania is leading the states in removing all of the lowhead dams. The only dams that are being kept are those that provide drinking water or provide flood relief. So if they're being dismantled, there's no reason to have restored that dam. That's my comment. Why spend the money to restore something that's supposed to be dismantled?
Anything else in row one? Yes, sir.
Yeah, my name's John Adams, and I have a question for these two, yourself, sir, and Mr. Mack. Are you guys in favor of building square foot warehouses on the 222 corridor?
I'm gonna ask him not to answer that again. That's something that's right now in front of this board that they're judges on. So I don't want them taking a public position for or against it. They're supposed to remain neutral until we get to the point that we're gonna decide that conditional use case. So I don't wanna taint them. If they would come out for or against it, the applicant or the neighbors could say, we don't want you to vote on that application.
Understood.
So I wanna keep them neutral.
Isn't it true, however, that you both voted no on a motion to exclude warehouses from the zoning
That's not
a month ago?
Well, to clarify the record, I made a motion to start the legal procedure to remove warehouses from the commercial zoning on Route 222, and my colleagues did not second my motion.
Is that a legal motion, sir? To remove that motion? Was that a good motion? I mean, could they second the motion, or would they be violating anything?
I wouldn't recommend doing it at this time.
But is it a legal motion?
Well, if it's made and seconded, it would be a legal motion to do. So.
Thank you. And my name is Doug, and I also have a question for Joshua Meck. And Joshua, are you employed?
Absolutely, I'm employed.
Okay, what are you employed for? What do you do, sir, for a living?
Are you a resident of Maidencreek?
Doesn't matter, I'm
Oh, it does
asking
matter.
you.
Well,
It does matter.
We need to have you say
I'm a
your-
resident of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania,
Doesn't
sir.
matter. I know
Well,
exactly who you are.
you know, here I am looking at a statement of financial interest, and it says right here, direct or indirect sources of income over $1,300 or more, including but not limited to all employment. You left it blank, sir. That's a violation of the Ethics Act. And
Where
not
did he
only
come
that,
from?
you failed.
Yeah.
You
Where do
absolutely
you live, sir?
failed.
Where do you live?
So we're gonna get attacked that way.
No,
Go ahead,
I asked you
say
to-
something.
No, you don't.
I asked you to speak to your address when I said you were allowed to talk.
She didn't give hers, he didn't give his.
Oh, my address? I live at 338 Main Street in Brandon.
I'm a resident of Lancaster County. And I can tell you something else.
Yeah.
And you absolutely
You're out-
failed
you're out
to
of
do a
order,
statement
sir.
of financial
Sir,
interest
you are out
last
of
year.
order. Anybody else in row one? Anybody in row two? Yes, sir.
Is that your legal opinion, sir?
Yes.
Okay.
Jared Gibney, 267 Longleaf Drive. I just want to know if you had any update on the UGI and Comcast work ahead of paving time?
That's a really good question. I am reluctant to go too much into detail. We actually have a meeting with UGI specifically not next week, at the end of this month. Separate meeting next week, my apologies. We've made clear to all the parties that the work that's in Onawani Heights is the township's #1 priority, and we will not permit work under the ordinance to any areas that have been newly paved this summer. So they have been told that if there's work that they want to have completed, it's got to be done before we pave, or else we're going to prohibit under the ordinance any work that people are going to try and do. Now that, I will say, cannot stop emergency permits. So if UGI had, let's say, a court order, and I think that this has happened in the past to correct issues, then they may be able to go into areas that are newly paved because they're saying that it's a health and safety risk under the PUC.
Yeah, are they done with the UGI stuff in Onawani Heights? Because I thought on that
No.
one map that like in front of my place, there
Yeah.
was to be done, but I haven't seen them there at all.
You're correct, they are not done. Part of that has been because of the township's actions, and we're trying to resolve that with them to make sure that that all gets done on a timely basis.
What are we looking at for paving time this summer?
We don't have work scheduled at this point, but I can tell you, Jared, it's definitely not gonna be okay for the township to allow them to
Yeah.
come in after it's already been done.
Okay,
I appreciate the concern though,
Yeah.
because I think we share the concern as well.
thank you.
We're trying to address that
Yeah,
for all the people who want to come in and take care of business in the township. Anybody else for row 2? We're gonna get you right after public comment. Row 3. Yes, sir.
My name is Richard Wick, 509 East Wesner Road. This morning at 6:40 a.m., a motorcycle went roaring by my house. Once it got past the curve, it sped past Joshua's house, continuing on, increasing speed. Yesterday afternoon, the same motorcycle with one bike rider, because I was sitting at my garage looking out to the north at the farm, he passed by with one rider, fast. 5 minutes later, he came back with the second rider, 5 minutes later. Thursday, I just saw him now coming in on Schaefer Road from the roundabout at 6:15. Same bike, same ride, single rider at that time. It's a black bike. It's not a huge touring bike. It has a chrome post with a black head position unit to protect the head of the second rider that's on this bike. This is not the first week or so, it's not just the last 3 days that I've observed this. I've seen him fly up Hawk Road after going to the east on East Wesner. We all know it's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't mind 35 by anybody, myself. But I observed the 25 or close to it. But somebody needs to be out there checking this guy and putting a stop to it.
Hey, have you notified the police about that?
No, I have not. I
You
would
may want to talk to them before they go, just so
Yes.
they have information that they can put out there.
Yeah, Josh has a picture of the bike from this morning.
Camera, yeah. Well, I have it from tonight. This evening. Yeah.
But something has to happen.
And maybe, Chief, if you can get the license plate number, just at
I
this
don't have a
point.
plate number, it's just.
I know you can't write a citation, but maybe making contact and where somebody knows who he is, that'd be great. Yeah.
Not me.
Anybody else?
I started talking, that's what I built
I don't have
that.
that.
I was just-
Perpendicular.
Aisle 3, anybody else? Yes, ma'am.
My name is Debbie Sullivan. I live at 203 Sandhurst Boulevard in Blandon. And I was wondering if your gag order will be lifted before the primary so that we can have some questions answered about where they stand on the warehouse candidates.
That won't be till after the warehouse decision has been made, because this panel is the judge panel. So nobody should be making any statements at this point, because it could be crucial to a lawsuit on behalf of the company that's trying to put the warehouse up. And we're trying to save you folks money by not doing that. Anybody else in row 4? And row 5?
Albert Lau at 119 Ponderosa Drive. I'll be part of the parking discussion in the solicitors section.
Okay. For the ordinance, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anybody else? Row 5, row 6. Anybody in? Yes, sir.
Charles L. Boyd, 284 West Walnut Tree Drive. In reference to this dam, I've been watching over several months, including board members, trying to ostracize another board member. These are county documents in my hand, which I was ready to let you review. That land that that dam is on is owned by Maidencreek Township. Okay? So now, all the stuff that's being put on there about it's her property, all the allegations made needs to be retracted. This documents here are county, never mind township. It's disgusting that I think that Mr. Mac, Mr. Frank, you could issue a statement on Facebook, which I have, tearing her apart when in fact, as supervisor, I had respect for you. I lost all.
I don't know that
Excuse me,
anybody
I'm not done-
stated that this
excuse
was.
me, I'm not done speaking, sir. Excuse me, I have the floor.
Okay.
And in fact, at this point, you owe her an apology. Okay? Mr. Baumann, you're laughing, you owe an apology
Do
for
I?
all the illicit things that have gone on.
Illicit, really?
That's correct.
Like what?
Okay? Everything you put on Facebook,
Everything.
okay? Now,
Then why
Yeah,
is
that's
the,
what
why
I'm
is the
speaking.
Conservation District
Okay.
investigating this? And why are they very
first
interested?
of all, they had to turn around and fix the dam because whether the dam's removed or not, there's a situation with silt. If you know anything about silt, sir, you wouldn't be opening your mouth,
Oh, okay.
okay?
Yeah, you're a silt
All right?
expert?
Well,
I've
you're a
worked in
truck driver.
construction over 45 years, I know a lot more than silt.
And you know that it was legal. You know that it was legal.
If you want to look
Allow
at this,
allow Mr. Voorhees to speak.
okay?
yeah.
You're more than welcome to look at it. It proves the fact that she does not own the land. The township did the right thing by the township to prevent further erosion from the creek. Now, there's a situation in this township with the whole drainage system that has been overlooked for a long time. That's another situation. But to tear apart each other, you're doing nothing for this community, nothing. And by the way, on your point, did you ever hear of second consent law, sir, Mr. Baumann?
Second what?
Second consent law.
Well, again, we're not gonna go into legal issues. I'm gonna say this, I have never said that this dam was on Miss Fiedler's property. I've never, ever said
I can read what
that.
you said, sir.
I have never
No,
said it
I
was
never
on
said
her
that
You
property.
said, along with Mr. Mack.
Mr. Voorhees, I
You
never
two
said
have-
it was on
you
her
two have
property.
it
I do this for a living, and I know what the tax map is, and I've looked it up, and I know
Yeah,
exactly
and
what
it's
it
right
is.
here. It's
And
right
I've
here.
never once said
We
that
are
it was
not
on her
arguing.
property.
For 2 years, you couldn't put a statement of financial interest.
You accused
For
her.
2 years, a statement of financial
Neither
interest.
did she. For $1 million lawsuit against her. She doesn't have that on there either.
All
Enough,
right,
enough.
I think you need to, I do have a comment though about some of the information that's been posted on Eric Bauman's Facebook page.
I don't know that we're going to discuss that. We're
No, no.
trying to shut this down now because it's something that we can't discuss because it's in litigation.
I'm not talking
Our
about
solicitor
warehouses,
just
I'm not
told us
talking
that.
about that, okay? Just let me finish what I have to say, okay?
Okay.
The issue was brought up about the dam. I was publicly accosted by an individual a couple weeks ago who actually followed me and harassed me and repeated information that was on your Facebook page, information that was false. This guy did this at 8 o'clock at night.
It was false.
It was absolutely false. He accused me of owning this Lowhead Dam, which is absolutely not true.
You're true, you're correct.
And repeated information that he saw on your Facebook page. I'm calling upon you to remove all false information, misleading information.
I will remove all false information,
because
absolutely,
it's leading people.
because it's not false. I stated
Well,
that the creek
it's
is on
leading
township
people
property,
to harass me,
and
it's
it was
not fair.
unauthorized.
You're an opponent. No, let me just finish, sir.
and why are you going around telling people that I'm pro-warehouse and I'm pro-apartments in front of Massimo's? Why are you telling people that? Why are you telling people that you saved the police department and we got 3 cops right here that can dispute that?
Listen.
Yeah, okay, we're
We're
getting
gonna-
into it.
You really want to do this?
Well, the problem is that
We're
your
gonna stop
Facebook
this
page-
right now.
No, let me just finish
No,
one
I'm not
thing,
gonna let
because
you
it's
finish.
posted false information that's led to
It's not false.
an individual to
Well,
harass
if
me.
I'm-
I'm not responsible for what other people do that read
Somebody
stuff
had
on the
an
internet.
opportunity to comment.
Well, you know what I mean? This is crazy. Now, we've been advised by our solicitor not to discuss the dam, and I've agreed not to do that. We have never said this dam was on Heidi's property. None of us here have. I don't know that was ever printed or posted. That's on township property. And nobody's disputing that. But we're not gonna make a comment on what transpired on that property, because at this point in time, it's under consideration of legal action. So, we're not going any further with it. Just like we can't mention the warehouses, because if we say one thing here, it goes into court. If we say one thing here about something else, it works against us in the legal ramification department. We're not doing that. So, if anybody has interest in reading what was said, you have to find the source and read it. And then you'll understand what was said. And then if you have dispute or you want to contact me and ask me what I put on, if I put something there, it's in type.
Right here, sir.
Yeah.
Right here, okay? You say you didn't dispute any of it? Right
No,
here
no,
on
I said
Facebook.
I didn't say that the dam was on Heidi's property.
As far as contacting you personally, never would happen. This is this is a public forum, which that's where it's to be contacted, in a public forum. There's no reason to ask you outside of this area. You're a public official. As I stated, okay, I had respect. It's gone. And these people in this township need to wake up and realize that they don't start, you people don't start working together, instead of ostracizing each other and allowing an individual to put lies. Okay,
What
on
lies? Tell me a
Facebook.
lie that I have on my page.
Quiet.
Excuse me, Vic.
I'm speaking, sir.
Well,
And you're accusing me of
I'll tell
something
you what,
and
we're
you
not
have no
getting into
proof.
Facebook in this forum. We're here
Well,
for
you did.
anything that's on
You
this
did.
list.
You used it. I didn't. I don't have Facebook, Twitter, or anything.
I'm glad for you. but
How do you know?
somebody
That's right,
else-
because right here in a public forum is where
Anybody
I'll
else
state
have
my statement.
anything relating to what's on our agenda? That's what we're here about now.
So if
The
you don't
agenda.
have Facebook, how did you get it?
A friend of mine gave it to me.
A friend.
Okay,
Well, he's a pretty good friend because he understands what's going on in this township. So you want to debate, let's debate it.
Lee Turner, you're from the Fleetwood Library. You're a voice of reason, of knowledge, and books. Please come forward.
Thank you. I would like to say just very quickly that it's actually very wonderful to see so many people that are passionate about their community. Too many people are not passionate and they don't care and they let things go by. So I wouldn't want to be anybody on any board in any community, but it is wonderful to see the passion. For the people in the audience that have not heard me speak before, my name is Lee Turner. I'm president of the Board of Trustees for the Fleetwood Area Public Library, your community library. And I come in once or twice a year just to update the board, to thank them for their continued support, to let them know how their funds are being spent, the progress of the library. We renovated a space starting in 2020 on the first floor of the Fleetwood Community Center. Ran into, of course, all the COVID issues, the dropping of funding, the high costs of construction going up, just everything you can imagine. But we persevered. We have an amazing space, and we invite you all to come in and see it. And if you're not if you don't have computers at home, we have computers there that you can use. 2019 was our last full year upstairs in a very dreary and outdated facility. After going through all the years of COVID and no normal visitations, 2022 was roughly about 90% normal. So that's our next gauge. Our construction costs were $690,000. To date, we're about $17,000 short. But we're working very diligently, doing a lot of fundraisers, and hoping to have that paid off, hopefully by the end of the year. In 2019, again our last year upstairs, Our circulation was 83,190 items. That means 83,190 things people came in and checked out. And when I say things you can come in and check out, a library isn't just books anymore. It's not just, you know, when you went to high school. We have line dancing lessons. We have, you can come in and make felt bowls. We have a teen room that's great if you have teens that need structure after school, someplace to go that's quiet, do their homework, use a computer, or whatever they need. We have a teen room, and it's very well used. We have a teen group if they want to join. We have, due to COVID, there's been a lot more homeschooling, a lot more homeschool groups, and the library has really stepped up in giving them programs to come in, and that adds to their curriculum and adds to their overall education process. We have everything from our youngest lap sit kids that my granddaughter attends with myself, to our more seasoned, or I should say most seasoned patrons that come in just to have a place in the day to walk into and you know, sit, read a book, get out of their house, whatever they need, we're there. So in 2022, like I said, in 2019 our circulation was 83,109. In 2022, we went up to 111,571 items. So for a community library, that's a phenomenal number. We're also about 5th highest in a library system of 24 in the county for Wi-Fi usage. Everything combined, we get state and we get county funding, and then we get local funding. And all of that combined, our programs, the number of books or items that you take out, the number of people that come in, everything combined goes into a formula that gives us what funding we get. And a big part of that is the funding that we get from our local communities. And Maidencreek last year increased theirs to a very generous amount, which I would like to request that continue for 2023. We also have one other new tracking method, and that is how much people save when they come in and check something out. And that not only, when you come in, you present your library card, you take the book out, it goes into a system that says this book was worth $28 or $5 or whatever. Plus, you have to consider that if you did not have community libraries to give you that 111,571 items, you would have to be driving into the city of Reading, parking, going into the library there, and returning all of your books there. So we really do serve every community in the county. But one of the new things that we are tracking, like I said, is this savings. And Maidencreek has beat out the other two communities of Fleetwood and Richmond Township in the savings department. You have one individual who has checked out enough books to save $21,838.27. I don't know who that individual is, but they're obviously a very avid reader. You also saved the most as an entire township. Maidencreek saved $352,661.75 in items that you checked out. In overall savings between the three communities, it was a savings of $791,385. So I think we can all agree that not only the move downstairs to make us more accessible to the public, to be able to offer more programs, because now we have a makerspace room that gives us a meeting area, everything combined has just spurred the growth. And of course, with growth comes additional costs, because if we don't keep up those programs, if we don't increase them every year, then our funding actually gets cut by the county and state, and we can't afford that. We just barely, nobody works at the library for the salary. Nobody, because you can work at McDonald's and make more. So we're trying to keep our employees. We have a phenomenal program director in Stacy Louts. We have phenomenal desk and future librarians that work for us as well. I think that's it, other than, again, to thank you and to reiterate that if you could continue that support, some support for 2023, it would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, just so you're aware, what we do is we budget for 2023 and 2022. So our budget is coming up for 2024.
Okay.
And I would say that if you're going to make a request to us for anything additional, if you would do that around September so that we can start working on our planning process with that, it would work much easier and you know, we build it into our budget then.
Right. So I would attend the September meeting?
Yeah, or send a letter in.
Oh, okay.
You know, you can contact, excuse me, our manager, and he could coordinate that with you.
Yes, yes.
For the board's reference, the township donated $15,000 last year to the library. And I also just wanted to say thank you, Lee, for your flexibility in being here this evening instead of last month as you had originally requested. That was helpful to our evening, which ran late. And I also just wanted to say thank you for the tour that I got with Stacy and the library director as well. I very much appreciated that.
I'm so glad you came in. Yes. Just for reference, Fleetwood gives us $20,000, plus they give us an additional $5,000 to run Tigers in the Park. It's a program over the summer months that the borough used to run, but outsourcing it becomes expensive. It's also not as creative. You know, now that it's run locally by the library, it brings in a lot more families, and it's been a real boost to the summer programs for younger kids. So,
So now you're looking for the other two communities to bring lions and bears, so we have lions and tigers.
yeah, you know. But any contribution for the 2023 year that you could do would be greatly appreciated, because, like I said, if we do not show that our local communities give us contributions, then we get cut by state and federal, state and county. And it's the rural libraries that get cut most often because we're not able to financially sustain like something like an Exeter or When Missing a Thinking Spring. If we don't continue the funding that we have, our funding gets cut. So, and then we have to cut programs, and then it's like a dog chasing its tail. It just kind of spirals down, and that's what's happening to a lot of the small libraries. They're either closing up or cutting hours or not being able to get enough circulation, and it just spirals down.
I had a question for you, ma'am.
Yes.
You said you were a shortfall of how much?
About $17,000 right now.
So how could someone individually or a company donate there?
Contact the library, or if you want to give me a card, your information, I'll certainly get a letter out to you.
So any individual could go basically to the library?
Absolutely, any individual. We send out a fundraising letter twice a year. One just went out in December. So you should have gotten one at your house. And any amount, I don't care if it's $5 or $50, it all adds up. And like I said, from $690,000, we were able to raise 670 some odd, and that's through some large donations. But over the years, I've been in thousands of concession stands. We've run hoedowns. This year we're running a horse race, Kaufman's Chicken Barbecues, you name it. So every single penny is used very well, and I appreciate anything that you can give.
Thank you.
Don't throw that fundraising letter away.
One thing for the Tigers in the Park, do you have any information about that you could send in the township, or we could also
I will
put it out?
definitely send it in when Stacy has it finished, yes, definitely.
Because I know a lot of people have been asking about it.
I know, and it's growing every year to where I'm not sure whether we have to add additional weeks or what we're going to have to do, but people are looking for more structure for their younger kids. Teenagers need it as well, but we just don't have teenagers don't come into things like that.
Sure.
But they're really in desperate need of it, and that's why we have our teen program at the library. But definitely Tigers in the Park. I think we got an award for it last year because it was run so well. And that doesn't happen often.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys get back to your.
Okay. Now return to the normal agenda. Northern Berks Regional Police Report, Chief, you're up.
All right, just wanted to actually get fresh numbers because we just had the commission meeting on Monday. So the numbers for March 2022, there were a total of 548 calls for service, 265 of which were in Maidencreek Township, 179 were in Onalani Township, and 81 were in East. 23 of those calls were administrative in nature. Citations, there were 211 citations issued, 55 in Maidencreek, Onalani had 68, Leesport had 88. Traffic warnings, there were 187 traffic warnings given. Maidencreek had 96, Onalani 58, Leesport had 33. Vehicle contacts for the month, those vehicle stops, there were 323 total. 130 of those were in Maidencreek, 105 were Onalani, and 88 were in Leesport. There were 11 arrests total for the month. 3 were in Maidencreek, 5 were in Onalani, and 3 were in Leesport. Crashes, there were a total of 44 crashes throughout the area, 16 of which were in Maidencreek. The breakdown on those, there were 7 that were reportable and 9 were unreportable. There were no hit and runs last month for Maidencreek. Onalani had 22 crashes, 5 of which were reportable, 14 were non-reportable, and 3 were hit and runs. And Leesport had 6 crashes, 2 of which were reportable, and 4 were non-reportable. Going up to the top of the column there, for vehicle service, there was nothing too crazy as far as vehicle service last month. Unit number 1 did need a new tie rod end, which was kind of out of the ordinary. Other than that, most of it was all state inspection, oil filter changes, tire rotations, just basic maintenance for the vehicle. Total was $1,425.61 for vehicle service for the month. Fuel, we spent 1,063.101 gallons, and that converted to 10,010 miles. The breakdown on the mileage per area, 5,294 miles were in Maidencreek, 3,416 miles were in Onalani, 1,096 miles were in Leesport, and 204 were administrative. Finally, I have the hours of service for the month. Maidencreek had 929.97 month hours, which converts out to 30 day hours. Onalani had 535.76 month hours, which converts out to 17.3 day hours. And Leesport had 303.28 month hours, which converts out to 9.8 day hours. So there was a total of 1,769 month hours. So that's it for the activity report. Some other things that are going on. As anyone who follows our Facebook page knows, we're hiring. We finally got the policy and the application and all approved at the meeting Monday night. So far, I think we received 5 applications, which is good. We're looking to hire 2 officers. That's what was approved in the budget. We're also looking to promote 2 officers. We're going to start with a promotion process shortly. I want to get the hiring process up and running first. National Night Out, again, August 1st. It's always the first Tuesday in August, which this year is the first day of August. So far we have, it's going to be Northern Berks Regional. It's going to be include Fleetwood Police Department, Hamburg, Byrne Township, and also Tilden Township. And it's not going to be as much a Northern Berks Regional Police National Night Out as it's a Northern Berks Police, all the police departments National Night Out. It's not any one department's thing. It's inclusive of the whole area. Some other things that were going on, as like I said, anyone who follows the Facebook page or watches the news sees we had a shooting in Leesport back in a few weeks ago. There was a stabbing in Onalani Township this morning. So what we do is more than just traffic. I always hear everybody complain about traffic, but I wish we could just do traffic. We have a lot of other things that are going on that we deal with. And not all of them are reported to the public all the time. We have investigations that are going on, and the things that are active, ongoing investigations aren't things that we routinely report the status of to the public. I just want to go over to the full-time officer. We're hiring 2 full-time officers. We're looking for officers who have Act 120 certification, and hopefully some experience helps, but definitely the Act 120 certification, and having that, obviously they need to be 21 years of age or older in Pennsylvania. Starting salary for a probationary officer, $75,735.53. And then once they complete 1 year of probation, then their salary goes up after that. Salary for a first-year officer in the Northern Berks Regional Police Department is $89,100.62. So if you know anyone or you're eligible yourself, I would invite you to come down to the police station, get an application. You have to come in person to get, with your driver's license, to get an application, and we're keeping track of what's been issued. Also, being that we're a regional police department, we're not required to give a written test or a physical agility test. So that being said, those 2 things are not part of the hiring process for Northern Berks Regional. There will be the application, and then there will be oral interviews for those who make the qualifications for the job. Anyway, anyone who is currently Act 120 certified who wants to come work for Northern Berks Regional to put in an application.
I was thinking about it, but. Yeah, well, there's no age restriction.
No, 21, I'm in 21.
Yeah. Just don't know that I want to do it anymore. Okay.
Okay, that's all I have.
Anything for the chief?
I have one question for the chief. When do the officers, should they be on the street?
The FTO program, it generally takes about 12 weeks. So once they are hired, then they have 12 weeks of training to learn our policies, learn our procedures, and then from that point on, they should be on the street. It depends on the officer, how quickly they pick.
So they've been hired and stuff?
No.
No.
Nobody hired yet. We just put the application out this week.
I appreciate that, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, chief. We appreciate the job you and your officers are doing.
You did a fantastic job this morning. I just want to put that out there. The suspect was in custody within a few minutes from the call going out. Once again, just like the shooting we had, the suspect was in custody almost immediately. So the guys are doing a great job. So that's all I can say.
The hats are off to you all. So we appreciate it.
All right,
thank you. Okay, so we're going to move on to our engineer report. Tom, you're up.
Thank you. The first item of business is the subdivision review status checklist, of which your first 2 action items under engineer are on that. The Joe Jazz Properties Land Development Plan. They received preliminary plan approval per our ordinance. They have 1 year to submit their final plan. They're asking for a time extension to that 1 year submittal process for their final plan. And that was recommended to the board by the Planning Commission to accept.
Do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Second one is a little bit different. That deals with a land development plan that is in the review process. The Maidencreek Associates have granted a time extension to the board to May 11th, 2023, and the board would take action to accept that time extension that's been granted.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
The next item on the list are 2 zoning applications that have been submitted. The first one is for 107-109 West Westner Road. I think the board is familiar with that being a single lot where a duplex was built upon. They're wanting to subdivide that into two lots down the party wall of the duplex. So they are requesting two zoning relief. One to deal with the lot area. 10,000 square foot is the minimum lot area. They're both in the 9,000 plus range, so they're asking for relief on the minimum lot area. The second relief item that they're requesting is for the minimum front yard. Technically, they can probably get that relief waived because there is a section of the regulation of the ordinance that allows for when you have a building on both sides, that you're allowed to basically line up your building with what's on both sides of you. So, and they are within that range, so. But that's the two variance requests that they are requesting from the zoning hearing board. If the township board of supervisors want to take any position on those, you don't have to, but you are automatically a party that you can either take no action, send a letter of support, or have someone go to the zoning hearing board to object.
I didn't have any comment on it.
I have a question for the engineer on that 107, 109. It's Vic Snyder. I'm at 102 West Western Road. The homes are up, they're built, they're in line. What was the problem all of a sudden that they left the places be built? And now you say their front yard?
They are, they built on one lot, a duplex, which you're allowed to do. Under that scenario of having a duplex on one lot, it would be a condo situation. They want to subdivide it into two individual lots and be able to sell each home and each lot separately as it.
Okay.
Okay, so that is what they're requesting. The front yard is not really an item, as I said.
I hope not, because it's already up. They've been living there for 2 months now. Something should have been brought up way before this.
It's their desire to change it now from, essentially, if they sold it today, it would be one house that has 2 units. They have an absolute right to do that today. What they're requesting to do is to be able to sell the 2 houses separately.
Okay.
That's what's given rise to this. They don't have a right to do that today. They want to be able to do that. So that's really what they're asking for today.
Okay, so that it's nothing to do with
It's not the building
the
itself.
frontage,
No.
because all the homes on that street, it's real well in line with everything else. I think it has increased the value of properties on our street, so I don't know why there would be a problem with this.
And I think that's where the board was headed, was not to oppose it. I think that's what I was hearing. Not to support it, not to oppose it, just let the zoning hearing board do what they're gonna do. So that's where what's happening here. So that's where I was gonna say is that typically, unless you feel strongly in one way or the other, it's good to bring this up to you guys, so you can at least hear it before it's too late. But if there's no consensus to go one way or another, there's no action to take. You don't vote to stay neutral, you just stay neutral. There's a second one.
So no action, you're taking no action. The second zoning request is for 504 Main Street, which I think most recently we would know it as Rocky's Pizza, I think was in there.
There was another restaurant too, after that.
Yeah.
Mediterranean.
Yeah. It's been empty for a number of years now, so they lose after 1 year their zoning, when it's a non-compliance.
Their grandfather is what you're saying.
Right, so they're not grandfathered
Right,
because of a
previously.
one-year lapse. So they're asking for a zoning relief to allow a restaurant to go back into the building.
I have no problem with that.
I think that was the planning commission's position also.
Yeah,
Okay, great.
It's fine.
so you don't need any action from
No
us
action.
on that?
Okay,
Dave, would you like for Eric to go next for the scoreboard so that we can take off? He's here on behalf of the business.
that's all, everything on my report.
That's all for your report?
Unless you have any questions.
No, not at this point. Okay. Eric,
Yes, sir.
you wanna just
Sure.
step up to the podium?
How's everybody doing?
Not too
How are
bad.
you?
Good, good, wonderful. I'm just here tonight on behalf of Fleetwood Baseball. We're asking if you, as the Board of Supervisors, would support us building a scoreboard and putting in a scoreboard on the Maidencreek upper field at Maidencreek Park. We reached out to you guys about doing this last year, and it was, at the time, received favorably. We had a couple of financial issues with a storm and having to fix our dugouts, and we weren't able to get it done last year. This year, we have the funding. We actually have a sponsor in Welbert Funeral Homes who's going to help us purchase the scoreboard. We would like to do 90% of the work to buy it, implement it, put it in. The only thing we're asking the township to do is help us to run an electric line from the garage to the first base dugout, where we will then connect the scoreboard from the outfield to the first base dugout so we can put it in. We will maintain ownership of the scoreboard. We'll take care of it. Other members of the community can use it if they would like us to. They would just have to communicate that with us. It's a wireless LED scoreboard, so it's very low maintenance. It's very low voltage. It's a very nice scoreboard. It should last 15 or 20 years longer than I plan on being involved in Fleetwood baseball. So it's about a $5,000 scoreboard. We think the whole process is going to cost about $9,000, and the cost to the township will be in the couple $100. And we've been working with Keith to put those estimates together that I'm sure he can give more details if he would need to. So I think all we need tonight is just a vote of your support, if you'd be willing to support it. Our timeline would be to order it now. It'll probably take about 8 to 10 weeks to come in, and our plan is to put it in June, July, so we'll be able to use it in our fall season and beyond after this year.
I don't
So
think
if you
we
have
had
any
any problem with
questions.
that last year. I believe we were all in favor of it, so I don't know why that would change. I think it would enhance the park as well, so, yeah. Anybody have any comments? And Keith, to run the electric, I know there's some other issues over there with electric that we're looking at too. Am I correct?
What other issues were we referring to?
Are we gonna put other lighting up or something? Was that a thought at one point?
Don't recall that.
Okay, maybe I'm thinking about someplace else. Okay,
Softball field's getting lights
yeah,
replaced and stuff.
okay.
As
Okay.
far as needing a permit though for the electrical work,
They should apply for a permit for the electrical work and for foundation, and, yeah, that's appropriate.
so then who would actually do the electrical work?
That's up to the township to decide.
So our guys can do the running of the wire, the installation would be handled by Fleetwood Baseball, and then we'd have SDE inspect.
Inspector. Okay.
Yep, and we can spend the spring going through that process if that's all right, and I can communicate that with Hunter.
We can get the permit before you guys have it shipped, so that way it's ready to
Perfect.
go.
Sounds good.
Well, while it's being shipped,
Yep,
not
yep.
before it's being shipped.
I think we probably wanna do a vote on that.
So what is the approximate cost of all this?
So I think $600, is that right, just for man hours and material?
I think that was close, yeah.
Okay.
So if we want to not exceed 700, would be a fair estimate?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to approve the placement and payment of the electrical cost for the scoreboard for Fleetwood area baseball, for installation and and usage.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Thank you very much, I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Enjoy the nice weather.
We're inside.
We're just at the park, getting work done.
We were thinking about asking him to put a sunroof in, but I think we'd have to get a moonroof installed
Yeah,
at this point.
Keith's pretty busy, so as it is, so.
Okay, so we're gonna move on to our solicitor's report.
The first thing on the agenda was the one addition you made to this evening, and that is the public comment and consideration of the ordinance governing parking and fines. If you recall, this started last year. It was all the participating municipalities in the regional police department were tasked with lining up their ordinances so that the fining procedures and amounts were the same, so the police department could not worry about where the municipal lines were when they were enforcing the ordinances. We took the opportunity at the same time at the township to update some of the places where we didn't want parking and things like that, and to make sure that our ordinance properly reflected the regional police department rather than Maidencreek Police Department. So we kind of brought it up to date to where we are today. So it is pretty comprehensive. It goes all through our code, lines all those things up. I did send it to the regional police department's solicitor. They're in agreement. Hunter gave me one tweak this evening. It is in section 6 of the ordinance, which is amending vehicles parked parallel and within marked spaces. And what it is that vehicles shall, what we originally wrote is that vehicles shall not be parked within 20 feet of a crosswalk at an intersection. And the language we're going to add there is painted or unpainted. I understood that we don't have that many painted crosswalks. So it's going to read within 20 feet of a crosswalk, painted or unpainted at an intersection. We're going to add that language in. I don't think that's substantive enough to change what's in front, but if the public did come and look at this, it was advertised. We authorized advertisement of it last month. It was advertised for consideration this evening. So it is appropriate at this point for board members to ask questions and the public to have any comment that they have on this. I think there was one gentleman that had a comment on it, so.
Again, thank you for allowing me to stand up here today. I'll apologize, Solicitor Fry, I did not go through all of what you have there. So my recommendations or observations are very specific. Again, I live at 119 Ponderosa in Honolulu Heights. My wife, Anne-Marie, and I have been there for over 20 years, so we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly here as far as traffic and some of the silliness that goes on the streets. Specifically, referencing the current ordinance 204-13, which is truck traffic restricted on certain streets. We're asking that the streets contained in the Honolulu Heights section of the township be added to the streets listed in this ordinance. This is basically a restriction of truck traffic allowed in the neighborhood. This would be similar to the signage and the restrictions that we currently have on Evansville Road and Shaker Road.
Let me ask you, will we be able to add for this development, since it's right along 222, no trucks except for local delivery? That would make it a traffic ordinance instead of a parking issue, and it would include their parking or transportation through there. There's only one way in and one way out, so I think it needs to be considered in that fashion, maybe not so much for the parking part of it, but for the operation on those streets. And not only that, it's a residential development that I don't believe is designed for the use of heavy trucks.
In addition, I'd also recommend, in consideration, even though you don't live there, directly across this 222 Genesis Drive, may also
Exactly.
fall into that as a restricted area, similar to what you're discussing.
So if I, you emailed the list to the
Yes.
township, so I did
Yes.
receive that, and what we discussed at the township is that since this ordinance was drafted, was ready to go, we didn't want to address those comments in this one. However, we do have another one coming through the pipeline, which is the non-use of brakes and retarder
Right.
brakes and Jake brakes. If we get to a point we're ready to adopt that one, and what I wanted to look at too was your comment on no trucks other than for deliveries. Sometimes those types of ordinance require engineering reviews of the streets, and you have to have reasons to adopt that. A one-way in, one-way out is probably a pretty good valid reason. Bridges is another reason why you
Right.
have to bring weight limits, things like that. So I didn't ignore you, we didn't add it to this one, because we didn't want to slow, we were already behind the 8 ball for the police department, we wanted to get this one adopted. I do have your comments, but what I would suggest, send that again, so that we have it, and we can add it into the discussion when we get to the point we're ready to do the Jake brake ordinance.
Okay.
Okay?
And then related to that, again, and I apologize, I'm not familiar with what's in your ordinance. You know, with the widening of Route 222, specifically the new shoulders, I know that we're starting to expand the no parking areas along those shoulders, but I'm thinking at this time it might be a good opportunity for the township to review the parking restrictions on those shoulders and possibly initiate something that's township line to township line along Route 222. The shoulders are now wide enough to park large vehicles. Personally, I've seen large vehicles parked on those shoulders. It's not a good thing to have, not only for traffic safety, but just in general for the neighborhoods. So again, I'd ask that consideration. I believe that's 204-15. So.
I do have a question. Are you having problems with trucks in your Montalani Heights development?
You know, I'll be honest with you, Ms. Fiedler. I've seen trucks parked on Tamarack. I can't say that I see it frequently. I do know there's a picture out on the web that shows a truck turning around at Tamarack. Since I didn't take the picture, I didn't feel it was appropriate to bring it forward, but I can tell you I've seen trucks like that, you know, parked there. And obviously you have to get out, so it makes sense to have to turn. I will also make another comment I noticed last night in driving into the neighborhood. CVS has now put up a sign as well at the head of their parking lot restricting truck park as well. So I think it's starting to sink in, and we have to start looking at things a little differently. Let's head it off before it gets crazy.
I agree.
Thank you. Again, if you could resend those comments,
Okay.
that way they're fresh
Did you
on my mind.
did
I can
you-
probably find them, but.
Yeah, if it's the one that I responded to on the chain today.
Yeah,
I'll
oh, you
forward
did
it
today?
there.
I had it
Yeah.
from several weeks ago, so that's why I didn't want to.
I emailed him today.
And then, you know, again, I will reach out to the supervisors. If there's something you need help from within the neighborhood, I'd be happy to reach out to other neighbors if you feel that there's something that needs to be, you know, further substantiated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else with regard to street parking? No? Okay, so I guess we're ready for a vote.
Yes.
Do I have a motion? What number is this ordinance?
I didn't have a number. I had a blank.
Give me 1 second, I believe it's 253.
23?
Give me 1 second, I just
Sure.
want to double check. I wrote it down and started putting it on the planning commission's agenda for the next one consecutively, but I'm pretty sure it's.
May I ask a quick question? Sure. I'm at 100 Tamarack Boulevard, first house on. Been there about 3 years now. Is there something in place for parking on the street for snow removal? Because there's been many times that the plow has to plow about 3 feet away from the driveway because there's cars that are parked on the side of the road, which causes us to have to shovel 3 feet beyond their own driveway in the actual middle of the street, where the mailman can't even get to our mailbox because the snow is piled up. So is there something in place about snow removal parking?
I don't believe we have anything to that.
Other than on the snow
Emergency
routes,
Right.
but not on just a general street.
Not on the general street? Is that something we can?
I don't know, sometimes it might be the only place to park.
Yeah.
I don't know all the places in the township.
Because I know in that neighborhood, there's there's garages and driveways but there are people that park on the street, which causes the plow to have to. So just.
Obviously, we can discuss it, I just don't know if it's practical. I absolutely hear your concern, I get it.
Yeah.
But if you have a person
I actually bought another mailbox to put on the snow pile in front so we can get our mail.
Do you have a gut instinct on that sitting here?
It's typically not done for subdivisions because it's residential parking. Snow removal or on snow emergency routes is typically on residential roads where you have people park on using the park is not.
There, it just comes down to knocking on a neighbor's door and asking them not to park out there. Yeah.
254.
54. So do I have a motion to adopt ordinance 254-23, governing street parking and fines as amended?
So moved.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
The next item is discussion and approval of the amendment to the treetops deed of trust document. If you recall, last month, I think he called himself the self-proclaimed solicitor of the treetop subdivision, or HOA. The reason he came in, and I had him send me the proposed addendum, and then after he sent me that, I actually asked him to send me the actual current deed of trust, so I could tell you why they came here. But in section 33 of their deed of trust, it says, this trust may be amended or terminated with the consent of the township of Maidencreek. So that's why they have to come here. And when I look at these on behalf of the township, I write that in there as well, because you don't want them to change something that could hurt you, the residents, or lead to more tax dollars being spent on what they do. This change, however, is being proposed because the original developer did not file documents prior to lots being sold. They didn't designate open space properly, and essentially what this amendment is doing is clarifying what portions of the property are open space to be taken care of by the HOA. And then also authorizing the HOA to charge each of the, I think, 123 lot owners for the cost to maintain that. So basically come up with a annual, quarterly, or monthly dues. It doesn't change anything for the township. Actually, quite frankly, it helps us because this will now then lead to them being able to budget, come up with a budget, come up with the procedures to take care of their open space, and then to charge the unit owners who benefit from that open space. So my suggestion is that we take action to authorize them to amend it as proposed, and then what Hunter or I can then just, I asked the solicitor how he wanted something from us, if it's formal or informal, it's just some type of notice to email them that we're fine with it. So one of us will email them, presuming you'll take action to authorize this amendment to happen.
Just because this is a BOS thing, I think I'll probably just have it signed in Dave's name.
Yep.
So I'll call you when it's ready, if you're prepared to approve it.
Yeah. Something we dealt with many years ago, and then it comes back and haunts us.
Yeah, well, I think this is kind of a path to have to stop coming back and haunting you, so
Right.
take care of it on their own, and have a process to do that.
So we need to take a vote?
Yes.
Yes, so gonna need a motion to authorize me to sign the amendment as proposed.
Basically, you're not signing, you're consenting to allow them to
Amend it.
Amend it.
as proposed.
So moved.
I'll second it.
On agreement?
Aye.
Aye.
A couple things that aren't on the agenda, they're just announcement items, so no action needed. The first one, as the public may have heard, the warehouse developer has, I think right before our planning commission meeting, they actually advertised a deemed approval of their application. It's this board's opinion, in my opinion, that the advertisement of that deemed approval is not warranted. There was nothing done improper by the township. Essentially, in their deemed approval documents, they are alleging that we didn't have hearings often enough, and we didn't have the amount of hearings or length of hearings that we were supposed to have. I've thoroughly looked into this, actually have answered their mandamus action, their peremptory judgment, spelled it right out to the court how we've complied with everything. The court hasn't decided that. On May 1st, Hunter and I will be going to the hearing and argument on those two items to present that to the court. One of the things that I put in that answer was that this advertisement is improper, and I've asked the court to throw it out. However, what I really want to tell the public is that that deemed approval, this board can't appeal. So a member of the public has to step forward to appeal that deemed approval. Once that happens, the township can intervene in that process, but we cannot be that party to file the notice of land use appeal. So somebody has to file that, and that's when we can jump in and make the same arguments in that matter. I'm hoping on May 1st that the court will hear us and throw it out. However, since it was advertised on April 4th, I believe, you only have until May 4th to file that appeal. So there's no real time to actually rely on a judge may not make a decision before May 4th. So we're asking that somebody would step up and file that appeal.
Question, sir?
Yes.
Solves worries. Since I am part of the whole thing going on with this warehouse, started with several other people, some 20 parts of party. Well, my question to you is, if I come forward and file an appeal, so I don't have a problem doing for this community, my question is, does that relieve me or take me out of any part of the hearing process?
No.
No, it just allows the township, is what you're saying, to then bring back into the litigation aspect for the solicitor and the township, correct?
Well, what it allows us to intervene, at that point, I will also attack the deemed approval. So along your side, or however that happens.
Along with special counsel and so on, correct?
It would be me instead of
Right.
special counsel,
Okay.
yes, yes. Yep.
I just have one other comment. It's simple. I believe it's simple. 655 people on this petition against this. Okay? Out of the 655, there's 20 of us, maybe 40 that show up at a meeting. Either you want this to go away in no warehouse, or you don't. If you do, it's time to get active and get at these meetings and understand and show the attorney from the contractor that this community does not want a warehouse. Because you're not gonna get any more tax base. Everything he's saying is a lie. 66 years on this earth, I have never seen a tax return.
Mr. Voorhees, if I could stop you, since that is an open hearing, I want to say, again, I don't want to taint this board. Yeah, I'm trying to protect
I
yourself.
respect you.
I want you to make those comments, but I want you to make them in the right forum, that all those things should happen in conditions. And I know you're prepared to do it, so you know what I'm saying.
You know
Yes.
that's not gonna be an issue.
I know. But thank you for understanding. With that,
There's another comment.
okay, go ahead.
I'm Brian Dixon, 100 Tamarack Boulevard. I too am also a party to the actual conditional use hearing component of this. However, if one or a number of us were to do an appeal to this deemed approval, would that preclude us from being able to act as interveners legally in either of the other two legal actions that have been brought against the Maidencreek Township?
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. So even though, there are now 3 different legal actions in addition to the conditional use application. It's the, it's the mandamus action with the peremptory judgment. That's what we're gonna hear on May 1st.
And where is that going to take place? I'm sorry, not to interrupt.
At the courthouse in Reading.
I think the docket is listed publicly under the
Yes.
court clerk's website, so you could go to County of Berks and then go through the judicial portal. Prothonotary office.
Yes.
Civil action.
So it is, I'll give you the docket number. That one is docket number 23-01815. So that's the That's the mandamus action, peremptory judgment. That's the one where they said, we've done something incorrectly. We haven't followed the procedural requirements of the code. They've also attacked our ordinance, trying to throw out portions of the conditional use criteria. I think that one's in discovery right now. I don't think anything's scheduled in that one. The third one's the deemed approval, which obviously I need, again, somebody from the public to file something there. And then the last one is the conditional use application, which we will continue to hold hearings on. So we're not gonna stop that and wait for the court cases. I don't think we can. We just gotta plow through this, just like none of the court items have been filed. And with that, we have hearings scheduled through August now. So some of these dates might be new for you, but I'm gonna continue to announce all upcoming hearings at every meeting that I attend, both this one and as well as the conditional use hearing. So they all are at 6:30, start at 6:30 at Willow Creek, thank you.
Elementary.
Yes. First one is April 26th, then we have May 30th, June 6th, July 11th, and August 8th. Oh, gotcha. Oh, so you had June 9th, so it is June 6th.
June 6th.
Yep. So those are Tuesdays in a row. So July 11th is a new one, and August 8th. This is the first meeting I'm announcing those two new dates. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will probably wait at this point, probably until May to circulate dates for September to see. But I still want to kind of keep a lot queued up, both for us to get dates and also so the public has plenty of time to plan, hopefully plan around the dates that we picked.
And Brian Dixon again.
Yes.
Let's say that it does come to, if we do get that far, the September date, just for the sake of argument, it ends up being the day that we do public comment.
Yes.
That would close that hearing, and according to the civil code, for these kinds of procedures, it would be 40 days thereafter that we would have to make a decision on that.
It is 45 days
45
thereafter.
days thereafter. Okay.
And somebody sent an email out to me, or to the township, I don't know who it came to, but they were questioning the 100 days for the applicant. So there is another time frame, is that the protestants are supposed to have their case done within 100 days of the end of the applicant. We don't know when the applicant's case is going to end. But the protestants, whether they're for, or the other parties, I should say, I don't know if they're protestants or they're for it at this point. Those parties will have the equal amount of time to put their case on. I don't think it'll take as long as the applicant, but we're obligated to provide you the same amount of time to put your case on that the applicant had.
Okay, thank you.
And do we know who's going to testify at the next hearing on behalf of the applicant?
We do.
Do you want me to pull it up?
Yeah, if you
Oh,
have.
that would be great, because I know there's
Yes,
been
I'm
questions
sorry, I
about
want
that.
yes.
Mr. Evers?
It's not.
So it was a fire safety gentleman, and what was the other one? Oh, and then somebody who was going to talk about the standards, standards for conditional use, or the performance standards in the zoning ordinance. So they're the two that the applicant has told us, and the reason for that is their engineer, who's supposed to be next, was not available for this upcoming hearing on April 26th.
Trying to get the second gentleman's name. Tom, how do you spell Ebert?
E-B, and the boy, E-R-T.
Mike Baltrusades.
Yeah, I knew I couldn't pronounce that.
I think it's Greek.
Can you spell that one?
I can spell that for anybody who needs it as well. And he is with Pannoni Associates, I think, and they do environmental reviews. So I think that's quality controls. Is that him?
Performance standards.
Okay.
performance standards are, you know what section that is in there? Yeah, I thought it would be in there. It's like section 220, article 16, 220 of the zoning ordinance, of the standards they will be addressing, or he will be addressing.
I think their letter of review for the applicant's file, paperwork is filed, I think it's A27. So if you go on the township website, you find that exhibit, that's the one that they'll probably be speaking
Yeah, I'm
primarily.
trying to zero you guys in on what to look for, so you know where to focus.
Thank you.
Sure. That's a good point. That is all that I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Hunter.
All right, so what I'm going to do here is just stop the video on Zoom and then share the PowerPoint presentation I'm going to be speaking from, just so folks can see. If I keep the video on while doing the PowerPoint, it's just going to continue to freeze up and will be very difficult for people online to follow it. Are you switching with me? Oh, I was gonna stay.
Go ahead. Are you sitting?
No, I was gonna stay. You can sit mine.
Works for me.
I'll back up one time and.
Yeah, you got a nice history compared to last.
Let me just make sure. Okay. So what I wanted to present to the board and also to the public is a project that the staff has been working on since January of this year. This is really trying to give a strategic perspective to how we're approaching bringing our roads up to a current position. Roads, as folks probably know, are something that we use every day, but it's probably the most fundamental service that the township provides to the public, and for that reason we want to make sure that we're appropriately investing in them so they're not falling into disrepair, which ultimately ends up costing taxpayers more because the cost to repair a road that is in disrepair is far greater than a road that's just time for a refresh. So we break the decisions around a 15-year plan that we've prepared into 5 different items or factors that we use to try and determine when a road needs to be repaired or when it needs to have greater reconstruction. That's condition, intensity of use, previous work, location, and cost of improvement. Condition is the current condition of the road. Intensity of use depends on truck traffic, volume of traffic, or lack of volume of traffic as well. It also depends on previous work. Previous work is anything that we've done previously, but also some of the crack sealing work that you'll see the road crew doing from different points in the year to try and repair some of those cracks that are forming throughout the year, and to also try and increase the lifespan of the roads in different methods such as that. Location, where it's located, primarily in proximity to other roads. So if you have a road that goes into the center part of a development that only the people that live there use, it's probably going to be in a better condition than the road that everybody enters that development from. However, what we're kind of asserting with this location piece is that we should be doing roads together, generally because they achieve or they have the same amount of traffic locally as their close neighbors do. And it's also helpful for the township to be able to do work in close proximities to each other because that's economy of scale savings that contractors are able to do. Because these big, large pieces of machinery that lay down some of the blacktop or some of these other road materials, it's easier for them and more cost effective if they can continue doing straight lines. And there are curves in there, but they don't have to stop, go across the highway, and then start again. And then ultimately the cost of the improvement itself. It was working just 1 minute ago.
She had to admit somebody, so you got to click on the.
Ah, Christina.
Did it go away? Maggie,
You're fine. I'm just giving you a hard time. Sorry. So what you see here, and I'm not going to go in detail on this, but this will be posted on the website as well as the road plan that the Board of Supervisors got, which is a 13-page document with the actual schedule itself for the next 15 years until 2036. one quick point of clarification. With the recent road work that we've done in 2022, as well as road work that we're doing this year and for 2023, we're starting the road plan in 2022 to go to 2036 because our plan is to touch every road in 15 years. And in 15-year cycles to touch every road thereafter as well. So you'll only see 13 years on here, next year and thereafter, but our concept is really starting with 2022 and going all the way to 2036. The road condition you can see here, we're using a model, it's on the next page, called the PACER model. This is a way to assess the condition of a road, and we separate it into 5 categories that we've locally identified as excellent, good, fair, needs improvement, and poor. If you look according to this PACER model, the PACER model, which is actually developed, I believe, by the University of Wisconsin for road work, it's widely used. It has some fallbacks for larger statewide agencies, but for local agencies, it's a really good method. It's very straightforward, simple, and it even has recommended methods of repair or reconstruction that are listed right next to it. We identify our road ratings in terms of that excellent, good, fair, needs improvement, and poor next to actual numbers. And by the end of this year, we'll have done an inventory of every township road in an extremely detailed way. So these ones are based on our previous numbers as well as the road crew's experience in the past year. Road use intensity, like you said before, this has a big impact on how roads have their life cycles. You can see over half of the township roads have a medium intense use. We define that there as a medium to high volume of traffic and a low to medium proportion of trucks and traffic volume. Trucks obviously way more than the cars that we drive on a daily basis, and the impact that that has over time, especially on roads that are often traversed by trucks, is greater than what a minivan or an SUV or a sedan will have. Can I add one person in here? Previous road work, you can see by this graph what we're trying to, and not in an extremely scientific way, but trying to portray is the normal lifespan of a road over 30 years. If you can see where it bends down to that point of failure, that point right there of failure is where you need to pay exorbitant amounts of money. Really anything past the first 15 years, you're supposed to be looking at some type of asphalt improvement, if not seal coating, at that 15th year, because that's the average lifespan. So what you can see with the blue line there is if you do a seal coat at the 15th year to keep it current, you extend the life period out. That's greater if it's asphalt, but basically what we're trying to portray there is that the life cycle of these roads is improved and elongated by additional work that we're doing, whether that's a seal coat or whether that's asphalt work. One thing that I think is kind of important to note is a lot of the township roads for the developments were installed in relatively the same period of time in the 90s and the early 2000s. Because of that, what we're experiencing right now is a glut of remedial work that we're having to address. So when you see the cost of improvement, you'll see that there's much more invested in the first couple of years in terms of what we think we need to do in order to keep the roads as current as possible. And that is, again, going back to that glut of work. We're in this period of time where things are really required to be done to these roads, or else they're going to be more expensive over time as they get farther along in that life cycle. Just want to see a little more. Road location, like I said before, we want to try and keep roads consistent around the proximate area where they are. All subdivisions being done at the same time or developments being done at the same time. If you folks recall, last year when the work was done on the other side of the lake, we tried to do the entire other side of the lake at the same time so that we're keeping consistent in our communal areas with doing this road work and achieving those cost savings as well. Some roads, though, are so long within the township that really financially it makes sense to allow them to experience a break. And by break, sometimes that can mean in a random part of the street where you see that there is a difference of road work, what we're trying to do is only allow breaks to occur at intersections on these individual roads only because of their length. And as you can see on the right side, a lot of those divisions are for roads that are anywhere between a half a mile to a full mile long. Doing all of that at the same time is extremely expensive for the township, and that's also taking time away from money we could be investing into other roads that may need as much need or attention as that road, but are not as long, and so are going to be more cost effective for us that year whenever that would come up. So the cost of improvements. This is really the biggest portion, and what's the cost factor? What we're showing here are different methods depending on what a road needs, whether that's a seal coat. We do include oil and chip. I know people hate oil and chip. It has its vices and its virtues. We also identify milling, which is necessary when we need to do road work in somewhere where there's a curb, whether that's a rolled hard stop curve or the sidewalk. What you do is you mill down to make sure that there's a clean transition from the roadway onto the curb. There's also overlay, fabric overlay that we've been doing more recently. What that essentially does is it replaces the need for the road crew to go out and do extensive base repair when things are needing base repair, but they're also not needing reconstruction necessarily. And that method is expensive, but it's also effective. We also have 1-inch leveling course and 1.5-inch wearing course. Those are asphalt pieces that are done together. A leveling course is what you do on top to level the road out so that it's a smooth ride, so you're not bumping up and down every time. But that is leveled out from crown, which is the center of the road, slightly down. I don't know if you can see how I'm trying to go slightly down there, but it's very slight so that water doesn't accumulate on the top of road or in the middle of a road. It will roll down onto the sides. And then the wearing course is what folks are actually driving on. That's the top layer. What we've identified for next year, this is just an example of 1 year. We have this broken down into every single year from this year until 2036. You can see there's the condition, the intensity of use, the length, all those different pieces. And we've also been able to control for what we anticipate inflation to make these prices in the long run as well. So ideally, this is giving us an accurate picture of the long-term cost of improving all of the roads within that 15-year time frame. You can see next year the projection for the work that we think that we need to do based on the schedule of keeping everything in that 15-year time frame, as well as the roads that really need attention, is almost $700,000. So here's total improvements over a year. I've just tried to summarize it so that it's easy to digest this evening, but like I said, we'll put the full report on the website as soon as it's not having technical issues. But you can see there that if you include this year's numbers, the total cost that we would have to pay in order to keep our roads current is over $8 million. And what we actually would have to budget for in future years doesn't include that 2023 number because that's already been budgeted and awarded in a bid for the contractor. We've agreed to pay that money. So it's for the board to determine how do we try and meet those future numbers from 2024 up through 2036, or how do we adjust it somehow to try and figure out different ways to make that less expensive. The average cost over that 13-year period, well, this 14-year actually, is $581,212. Now, if you look, some of these vary greatly, so what we wanted to try and create is a number that, if it was budgeted this way annually, we'd know that we'd have the funds to be able to pay for this work over the long term. So what we did is we controlled standard deviation and allowed an adjusted average, which took out all of the outlier years for costs, and our average is closer to $619,505. There is an inflation factor of here, 4.75%. That's based on data that the Federal Reserve has been accruing for stones and materials since 1973 and for asphalt since 2006. So we controlled it from 2006, averaged inflation out over every year since then, and that's how we get the 4.75%. We also because we think that this is a really important product, so that the board and the community can be thinking strategically about how we're adjusting and fixing our roads, we've identified 4 SMART goals. SMART is just a term that's used in the business world and public administration world and nonprofit sectors. Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound goals. And those 4 goals, I'll just read the goal itself, is to develop a capital expense plan, review all roads per PACER model, inventory all major infrastructure, and update road maintenance plan. Why these are important, there's a lot of work that our road crew is able to do, and sometimes there's work that we'll be able to do with different types of equipment. So when we're looking at this and we're looking at a capital maintenance plan, if we were to say there's this one piece of equipment that would cost, let's say $100,000, but in the long run it would save $300,000 for the road crew to be able to do that work, that's a worthy investment. So we're able to make sure that we're actually investing into something that's worthwhile and beneficial for the township, especially if it's a new piece of equipment. Reviewing all roads per the PACER model, that's something I mentioned briefly earlier. That PACER model, we have an inventory sheet. It's just a simple one-pager that all of our road crew guys are going to be able to do once a year going forward, but we want to have that base format that they're going to be building on in future years. Some of those things will be measuring what percentage of the road is experiencing cracking or some other form of breakdown, or what percentage of the road is experiencing none of that and it's being in good condition, so we don't need to worry about moving that up on the schedule. Inventorying all major infrastructure. Roads are probably the most basic form of infrastructure, but we also have bridges, culverts, all these different pieces. And they're really important to have a good idea about what the cost is and where that fits into these plans. If you look at what we've done in terms of cost for some of these years, that's pretty high. If you factor in having to replace a bridge for whatever reason, a bridge right now could be anywhere in excess of $1 million to $2 million to even $3 million. So if the ask of the community is we need to replace a bridge and in the same year do 500 grand of road work, that's just not going to happen. So what we want to be able to do is in the long term figure how do we integrate the rest of our infrastructure that's oftentimes more costly but less common in terms of how many times we need to do work into the plan so that we're appropriately budgeting for the future and the township isn't left holding the need for a loan because we didn't budget or save properly for what we anticipated would happen. Update road maintenance plan, that's just to simply update the plan with those 3 pieces of information and just continue to build on it so that it continues to be a strategic navigator as we go forward. That's all that I have. I don't know if folks have any questions now. I'm happy to try and answer them, but it's kind of just
Okay, we'll start in the front.
Say the money like they were using like this year and next, I think you said that was from some funds that were or grants or something. Is that right? Is that
ARPA money,
ARPA money?
primarily. So that's the federal money.
Okay. Is that something that typically is available in the future?
It's COVID.
No.
So it's going to be difficult to find that.
And I'm not trying at this point to suggest a policy framework. That's obviously for the board. But what we did here is Keith and I sat down and tried to identify the roads that we think needed to be touched in 15 years. 15 years is a good number because that is the good, useful life cycle of a road. Once you get outside of that 15-year framework, that's when things become more expensive. So the value proposition that we're saying is over 15 years it may be more expensive if you didn't touch anything for 15 years. Over 30 years it'd be far less expensive to do this work periodically rather than have to do a lot of work all at once.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I just have a question with usage on the roads. Now, I know we need them, and I'm not complaining, we need farmers, but running like on Hoke Road, east-west, and there in Southview with the steel wheels, because it does put indentions on Southview and everything else going through there. And like I says, I know we need them, but there's
Yeah. I think that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse. I'm not sure that there's a way for us to control it strongly, and I know that there are certain protections given to farmers for the use of agriculture, and I think that would be more of a policy decision that the board would have to make if there was a way to regulate that.
And I'm not
But
so
I-
sure under the Farm Act that we can even go close to that.
Because I'm just saying, when it's warm, it does put marks in the road.
Yeah.
How often is the comprehensive infrastructural assessment done? I saw that you suggested one would be done between September and December of this year for the next year. Is it done every year then? That inventory?
So I would ask Keith if you can identify what was done in the previous years, because I know that there were inventories done of roads annually. What we're talking about here, this is the first time this document has.
This is the start, it's like the beginning of the
Correct.
process.
But
Okay.
I don't want to suggest that nothing has been done before either. Do you want to speak to that quick?
Yeah, I mean, we've done road work before, but nothing this comprehensive in this detail.
Okay, so,
Yes.
so again, it wouldn't be done every year, it would be something that would be, it's just being done for this initial plan, this 15-year plan.
Not everything will probably be looked at every year, but the roads, I think we would like to do them every year, but we want to get them to a place, we want to get those forms, those inventory forms, to a place where it's easy for our guys to go out, maybe one day, a quarter or something, and go pick up like the 10 roads that day or something along those lines, so that it's not a huge burden on the staff time. But for roads, ideally that would be done every year. We do have state requirements that some bridges, especially if they're not low volume use, receive inspections either on an annual basis or a biannual basis. Yeah. So I don't think we have any bridges right now that have an annual basis one. But don't they get there if they're in a certain condition? Yeah. So that we would probably still leave, because I think the state picks up a portion of that bill as well.
Yes, normally they take that review fee right out of your liquid fuels money. So you are paying for it, but they're taking it right out of your.
I didn't know that. How generous of them.
They give it, they take.
So, I mean, the comprehensive assessment's being done to target or understand where things are gonna fall, and as it goes through time, you can focus on in at that time on those things.
Well, I am not a civil engineer. I am brand new to some of this intensive look, so I would turn to Tom for some of this if I get any of this wrong. But conditions in one single year can speed up the degradation of a road. Whether that's a company like UGI doing road cuts, whether that's a significant storm water year. Let's say we get a really wet summer and we constantly have buildup of water on the sides of the road. If you get a lot of freezing and cooling, freezing and cooling, freezing and cooling during the winter, those factors can change the trajectory of the road's lifespan within a year. Not dramatically in a way that you have to do it next year when you anticipated to do it 10 years away, but that's why we would want to do them annually, so we can monitor how those changes are occurring. Was that fair?
I do want to actually, I want to say thank you for doing this intensive work, because this is a really good document to base future maintenance work and, paving and all that. We did start about 5 years ago to do a comprehensive review of the condition of our roads. Prior to that, we didn't have that. So we did a complete review with our township engineer and road crew foreman, and they inventoried all the roads to get an idea of what the conditions were to develop annual plans. And this takes it even a step further, going out further years and really putting more numbers to it, especially because you've also indicated what type of work that would be, accounted for inflation and the annual costs. And I think it is really important to maintain our roads. In the past, we basically spent the liquid fuels numbers were on annual maintenance of our roads, and that really hasn't been enough. I mean, this is the first year we're going above and beyond that, because, like you said, some of our developments, a lot of them occurred in the 90s to 2000s. Some roads were installed better than others, and we need to maintain them to get to that point. I do have a question though too. Like, some of the diagrams you had up here were not actually in this document that you gave us here. So-
Some of these are novel ones, just to kind of summarize
Yes.
text.
Right, and I like the ones where you have the pie chart that shows the overall different, summary of the different conditions of the roads, and also the projected costs, annual costs
Yeah.
for those 15 years. I didn't see that in here. I really like this document that is a
Yeah.
complete inventory of everything with the conditions, the rating, what type of work's recommended, and the cost and all of that.
Yeah.
I'd like to have a summary then of
Okay.
all of that, so.
Yeah, I can certainly add those pieces into the text, and then, we can post the PowerPoint separately. I think the reason why those weren't there is because I tried to boil it down very simply, but I take your point, and if that's something you want to see, it's easy
Well,
to change.
yeah, because I like both. I like having a comprehensive document, and then I do like having a summary of the different, how much you need to expend every year, and a summary of all, all of this as far as what the overall conditions are by category, percentage. So, thank you.
I was just gonna say, just generate a PDF of the whole slideshow together, throw that on the page along with the actual PowerPoint.
Yep.
And people have the option to print it out and sit there and do it.
Just something for everybody to consider. On average, we get around $300,000 a year from our liquid fuels funds. I have some fears that that's going to go away into the future because they're talking electric cars, so there's not going to be any fuel funds to take from. So we are going to have to look at alternatives of how we're going to do this. So that's something to keep in mind too. It's imperative that you have good roads to drive on. It's better to put the money onto the roads than you guys having to put them into every one of your cars. In my car, as we're driving down the road, we take it as something that's very serious for us to think about. And that's why Hunter undertook this with our road crew, and we look for your support.
Well, I also want to specifically thank Keith and Tom, whose insight into this stuff, which a lot of it is new to me, was invaluable, and it certainly would not be what it is today. And there were corrections that both of them made from my mathematics, as well as just understanding of some of these pieces, so I'm very thankful to them. I'm also thankful to the board for the work that you guys put into reviewing some of those initial drafts and kind of asking for some additions or clarifications and pieces like that, so thank you.
Anybody have any questions? Have we? Okay. Well, thank you again. Okay. Do you have anything else for us, Hunter?
I do not, other than business, but all simple stuff.
Okay, so I guess the first thing on our business list is appoint first tax committee for resolution 2023. And you were looking for something else to do.
I probably won't do anything for this, but yeah, maybe, we'll see. If they have coffee and donuts, I might go.
Okay, so do we need to do this in the form of a motion?
Yeah.
It's a resolution.
Well, yeah, I guess we do have to have the resolution. And it would be number 20 of 2023. Do I have a motion?
I'd make a motion that we appoint our manager, Hunter Ahrens, as the alternate for resolution 2023 for the Berks County Tax Collection Committee.
I'll second it.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Okay, the scoreboard we already taken care of. Fuel bid contract via BCIU.
So this pricing sheet that I left on the table, I think it's underneath here. This came out yesterday.
Right.
BCIU, we're part of the consortium that bids our heating fuel, our transport fuel, and off-road diesel as well for other pieces of equipment. So the prices are better, much better than we've been paying while there has not been a contract. There was not a contract because of the instability in the market and the inability to extend the contract further. But now these prices are much better than we were getting before. We benefit from being in the consortium because the consortium is run through the BCIU, so the primary folks that are purchasing fuel are the school districts and every day they're doing what? They're busing kids. So we benefit greatly, I think, from partnering with them in this way. The pricing has been awarded already by the consortium. However, I think it would just be appropriate for the board to affirm these prices and also affirm for the staff to be using these ones as we move forward.
Is there a minimum amount that we need to commit to?
No.
Was the tank wagon delivery less than 7,200?
Yeah, 7,200.
I believe it's for the size of the tank.
Yeah, those are delivery trucks.
And tractor trailer for
Well,
7,200.
right, so then,
Anything
they're just saying
less
that's you get some variation in the size of a tanker, but it's going to be approximately that amount for people that can take tractor trailer loads.
Stay safe out there, guys.
So I move that we award the fuel bid contract via the BCI.
Second?
I'll second.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Consider road openings and the streets ordinance draft. That's been under consideration for some time.
Yep, it's been another labor of love. Roads, rock and roll. This has been a project that we've had going on since the issues, I think, developed with recent work by a utility company. Their name starts with a U. If you can't figure that out, ask me after the meeting. I just don't want to besmirch them. Because of the issues that we were having with enforcing certain remediation standards, we wanted to update our ordinance. So Tom, Eric, Keith, and I undertook this project to update some of our ordinance language. We used a base draft from the city of Reading. And we also had a gentleman from Tom's office who was the former public works director there take an initial look and offer some comments as well. But I don't know, Tom, if you want to add anything on this. I mean, you guys have the text, so I don't know if you have any questions that you want me to try and address, but Tom, if you have any general comments.
I would say that Hunter did a tremendous job. It's very comprehensive. It's addressing road restoration requirements. It's addressing road that are recently paved and requiring utilities to pay a restoration fund or pay into a fund for a degradation of a road. And it also establishes a policy for roads that are going to be paved in the near future that the contractors are going to go in and do work on. So I think it's a very comprehensive document and will serve the township well.
Are we ready to move on this?
So procedurally, we are looking for your approval to move it forward. So it has to be, it's an ordinance, so it has to be advertised. It's not in final form yet, but we're gonna continue working. As long as we get it done a week before your next meeting, we'll have it advertised, as long as that's what you want. I think substantively, it's very close. I have to manipulate stuff. I actually emailed Tom and Hunter today that right now, the numbering's off because you got a number differently to squeeze it into where our ordinances are now, so we're gonna have to adopt a complete change to this whole article of the ordinance. We're gonna try and keep it within the section that it's in. So we'll work on renumbering that. I think there are probably some tweaks to the language that we're gonna continue talking about. But the goal is to have it ready for your May meeting and advertise. So that's really what we're looking for is your authorization to move it forward so that we can advertise it for the same thing that we did for the ordinance tonight for public comment and adoption at your May meeting.
Right, so.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with that.
I'll second.
All in agreement?
Aye.
Aye. I was waiting for you to ask.
So, Hunter, what I'll do is get us basically for us a dead date for when it has to be in a final form so that we all know what we're working towards. I already put it up in ordinance form. I sent it to you today is how we'll manipulate it from. what you have into an ordinance you're actually adopting. But I think once we have that time frame lined up, we can easily get it ready.
What I'd like to see is we get it out there before they start the streets project.
Exactly.
So that we can-
Exactly. That's why we wanted your movement on it tonight, so that we could get it in. You know, the weather's right for them to start that going.
Right.
So,
It's 80 degrees.
yes.
Santan Avenue? Probably earlier in the month.
I'd say generally April 1st or something.
No, seal coat closing plants just don't wire.
One test, we sign it.
Yeah.